Good morning. Thank you all for being here. This is a pretty exciting day. As you know, I'm a big data geek and a tech geek, and so I love this. So my job this morning is not to step on all the toes of the presenters that are going to come behind me and steal all their thunder, because I would love to stand up here and do the whole presentation for the next hour and a half, because it's that much fun stuff. But if you heard me speak a little bit about the technology that we've been implementing at the budget hearing, you'll know we've been in a multi-year process of getting ready at ISD to roll out an enterprise license agreement that we now have in place and permanently funded and ongoing funding thanks to the board yesterday. And yesterday? 2 days ago. It's been a long week already. And so this product is available for all of you to use. I want to really encourage you to think how, as you go about your daily business, you might be able to take advantage of some of this. One of the things that I've always been frustrated with as a county, and all of you know, because we occasionally ask you for, send us all the reports that you're producing for whatever your funding streams are, or whatever your internal requirements are, or audits that you have to do. And it is, not kidding, when you stack it all up, probably as tall as I am. We produce vast amounts of data, and we've never done a great job of using that to our own benefit. We take it, we report it to all our funding streams, and we're very good at generating it, and then we don't use it, we don't store it in a common location where it's accessible so that you can see what's going across departments. This is really the platform that's going to allow us to take the next step and do some of those things. So I encourage you to think not only what you can do in your own programs and departments, but what you can do sharing across. And you're going to see some things, collaborative things across departments today, whether it's some of the homeless stuff that's going on, or whether it's our law and justice departments. There are huge opportunities to start to leverage all the data that we're collecting and do a better job in terms of how we approach our business on a day-to-day basis. I want you all to be thinking about, when you go back to your office, how am I using data on a day-to-day basis to know whether my programs are doing good, not doing good, and even if it's not, something's going bad, are there areas to improve? How can we start to learn from some of the data that we're collecting? Too often, we take all that data and we're turning ourselves into a publishing company instead of an analytics company. And I just talked to the board a little bit about this during the budget hearing. We're throwing some ideas around about maybe we talk about going to a 2-year budget. Just saving on all those thousands of pages of document production every year frees up a lot of your staff's time and my staff's time to do things like actually dig into the data and start to figure out how we can do things better. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. Thank you to Jennifer for pushing this forward and working with ESRI to get this happening, and I'm really excited for the departments to be able to share with you some of the things that we've already got kicked off today. So thank you very much, and I'm going to introduce Jennifer Hilber, the county CIO.
Thank you, Gary. Well, good morning, everyone, and we're very excited that you were able to attend today, and I want to let you know that everything that you're going to see is in production today. They're county-developed solutions using ESRI's suite of products that are available today in production. Now, when we talk about ESRI and GIS in general, oftentimes people think, well, it's just simply a map. Well, I just want to let you know there's so much more than a map. It's creating maps that tell a story, where you can share information, perform analytics, and solve complex problems. And it can really change how we do business today. So where do we begin? About a couple years ago, the Board of Supervisors approved what's called an Enterprise License Agreement, or ELA, for our ESRI suite of products. And as Gary mentioned, it's an enterprise approach to how all departments will be able to access the tools that are available and the software that's available and in place today. So that's the main benefit. Prior to having the ELA, we as a county had a very siloed approach. We had departments that had their own licenses, they had their own hardware, infrastructure, and they created data, which we call assets, that benefited their departments, but they were stored in a siloed fashion. So after getting the ELA, we, being ISD, worked with ESRI to first create an enterprise environment, so that way we could store all of our data assets in one repository. But then also we created a user group for GIS, and we identified the departments that were actually using ESRI's software, and at the time it was about 10 departments. It's Sheriff, Public Works, Land Use, and more. And we worked with them to first identify what data assets or data layers are out there now stored independently. And we had about 200 layers at the time. So over the past couple of years, with that user advisory group, we have been consolidating the layers, adding metadata, which is characteristics that identify what does that data layer represent, and then storing them in a central repository. And then with a practice of, or we've created a standard of how do you store and then access and manage those data assets. And today we have about 100 base layers, but over 900 data layers that complement the base layer. So we have over 1,000 data assets, which is it's exciting. So moving forward is ISD's role will be this. We are going to continue to support the enterprise infrastructure. We're going to help coordinate training or at least information so that you can be apprised of what ESRI toolsets are here today and what's coming. But ultimately, we want to empower departments and help them take advantage of the toolsets that are available, because a lot of this technology you can actually do on your own. And you'll see one example that doesn't necessarily require a technical person. So that being said, I'm excited for you to see a number of our presentations. And what would be helpful, as Gary mentioned, look at the presentations and see how potentially could I use this type of technology and what problem can I solve in my own department. All right? Okay, thank you. And so Leonard, he's going to be introducing the speakers moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. We appreciate that. You know, working together isn't always easy in a big place like the county, but it's always valuable. The county's vision underscores collective impact. And it's that collective impact when we can come together and utilize technology to make a difference for those that we serve. That's when we see the county moving forward in such wonderful ways. This morning we have 6 wonderful presentations on how folks are doing that. It's my pleasure to introduce Andrea Butler from the Sheriff Coroner. She's going to talk about the Coroner's Unidentified Remains project. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Adriana Butler. I'm a Deputy Coroner Investigator with the Sheriff's Department assigned to the Coroner Division, and I'm going to be sharing with you how we utilize this tool to assist us in correlating the data handling our unidentified remains, our cold case John and Jane Does. So our office, annually we're reaching upwards of almost 1,000 or 11,000 cases reported to us a year. Of those, on average, we're almost at 300 cases a year that are John or Jane Does, where we have some difficulties in confirming identification of the deceased. We work very diligently through many means using DNA or dental fingerprint analysis to try and identify those people. But typically, we have about 2 or 3 cases where they're extremely challenging, and those are the ones that we have to hold over and continue to pursue different methods to try and get those folks identified. So in our case, not all of those people that we're trying to identify are necessarily fresh remains. They may be skeletal, they might be scattered. In those cases, we're talking about scenes in our county, which is very vast, where we have difficult recovery, and we also have partial recoveries, where we don't necessarily acquire the entire person during our first endeavor. How we used to track all of those cases was pen and paper. We had a giant map of the county and pins were placed in it, and it's not a great use of data because it's very static. You'd have to go back to the office. You'd have to get a ruler and a scale to try to estimate how those cases might be correlated with each other, and to revisit those, it wasn't very accurate in this kind of format. Now, with the tools that we are implementing now that we have through the ESRI suite of products, we have this digital map. We're able to import our data and store it in such a way that it is mobile. So we are able to access it in the field and be able to better correlate those items of data to assist us in identification. The dashboard and the different ways that it manages that data give us a really powerful way to search correlation. We can enter and modify the data that we're collecting for these points, and also and search and query and use those layers. Is very, very easy to do. It is something that we can do entirely in the field, and it is also something that gives us a great way to correlate cases geographically, because missing persons, unidentified persons, they don't understand a county boundary. So you might have a person who's died near our county line, and their skeletal scatter might be over the county line, and we'd have to work with our law enforcement partners to try and solve that case. And this dashboard that gives us amazing stats that are accessible to our managers, our captain, our sheriff at the drop of a hat, so they can see where we are at as far as our progress on our current cases. A great case study, an example of that, is our undetermined doe 0819. This was a skull that was found in the Deep Creek area north of Lake Arrowhead by a hiker. We had some dental information with the skull, but we also needed to try and figure out who this person might be. Now, before, we would go to our paper map and try and see if there's maybe an open case of a partial recovery nearby. But in our preliminary meetings, we were talking with search and rescue. We need to find the rest of those remains. So with that, we were planning insertion of multiple teams to try and locate the rest of this person. And just the basic search and rescue budget for that one-day event was close to $14,000. That's not including the other support staff, the coroner's office, the homicide team, anyone else that was going to be tasked with going to recover additional remains associated with that skull. So my colleague, September Fonzie Jones, who's been working on digitizing all of this data into the ESRI system, we went back with her and we looked at our digital map and we said, hey, we have this point of reference, this point of data in the same location where a mandible was found 21 years ago, and we have those dental records on file. So let's do a direct comparison of this past case with our current find, and we have documentation of multiple searches that were done in that area, and the skull was outstanding. We were able to correlate that data directly and able to identify that person without and abusing, the resources that the county has. We were able to say, yes, absolutely, this is an identified person based on the information we already had in-house without having to involve the Department of Justice. And that's what this digital map gives us the access to do in the field. And then also looking at it in a much bigger scale. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, they are using this data to track their children's deaths and missing children's records, and it's searchable by anybody. We want to use our tools to be able to work with our law enforcement partners outside of our county line in the same way. So that's our goal, is one, to make it in everybody's hands in our departments that we can use it in the field, as well as be able to encourage our partners on our county borders to be able to share that information and use that data to our benefit in order to solve these cases. I think it's a powerful thing that we can use, and we're very excited to apply it in our office. Thank you very much.
I forgot to mention that at the end of the presentations, we'll have a time for some Q&A. So if you have some thoughts about the different presentations, we'll bring folks back up. Thank you, Adriana. You did a wonderful job. Now we'd like to have Elisa Laurel come up from Economic Development Agency to talk about the retail story map.
Good morning. So I'm pretty excited to be here today. I'm Elisa Laurel with the Economic Development Department. And had you told me about 2 years ago when this retail story map behind me was first produced that it would be shared with regional partners and used as a best practice at the ESRI Summit, and I'd be presenting to you here today in front of a group of department heads, I would have not believed you. And that really is because I am not a GIS expert. I'm bad at IT. In fact, my colleague and I, who were intimately involved in this process of creating the story map, when we first met with ESRI to talk about what we wanted to do, they were asking us if we knew how to copy and paste. So I think that's pretty indicative of how tech savvy we were. But I think that's a testament to the ease and user friendliness of the ESRI suite of products, right? So in economic development, we really like to market. If you can go back one slide. We love to market. And we really wanted to showcase some of the retailers that we had in the county and the quality of life that we have here. So we started off with a video production. And this video piece behind me, if anybody is a fan of grilled cheese sandwiches, please raise your hand. Yeah, okay. So this piece was actually produced by a 19-year-old, and it was during their grand opening. And they gave it to us because they knew that we had a piece that we were producing for the county in terms of retail, and they were excited to share it with us. So we were able to copy and paste it, and you see this great immersive video back here, which really tells a great story of our retailers that we have in San Bernardino County. So one of the big things that I really like to talk about in San Bernardino County as well is I love to say that we're a market of firsts, right? From the very first McDonald's to the very first Del Taco to, the very first GIS firm here, ESRI, right? We really are a market of firsts. And so that narrative we love to proof point, as I like to say. Next. So from the very first Big Alts, they chose us in San Bernardino County as the very first California location in the city of Ontario. We have Punch Bowl Social in the city of Rancho Cucamonga as the very first California location. And then we have one of my favorites, Cracker Barrel, in the city of Victorville. They chose us as the very first California location. We were also able to integrate some great immersive maps as well. This is of downtown Redlands, so you kind of see it's a lot of fun to play with it. So we were able to integrate that into the storytelling piece. And then some more messaging. We love to do PR and marketing. And then I love to say we are a county that's young and growing, right? So in San Bernardino County, one of the themes is that we've got a population that's young and growing in terms of millennials. So if you scroll down through here, you'll continue to see some of the great assets that we have in San Bernardino County for young families and the population overall. As far as housing, we've got some great assets as far as tourism as well. And for the purposes of this video, I actually muted it so that I could present over it, but it's got great audio features. So you can add dimension to a lot of your storytelling features, and it's a really great tool to use in that respect. So this is our retail story map as far as the assets for retail bubbles, and specifically for census tracts. If you can go back one. So this is a great tool. So if you actually click on one of the bubbles, the bigger the bubble, basically the larger the millennial population. So if you click on it, you can kind of see the census tract as far as that. It's great, it's immersive, you can swipe back and forth. So there's really great features to it. And then we were also able to integrate our tapestry segmentation. If you go to the very last section, the very last section actually is our tapestry segmentation at the very, very end. And here you see it's really colorful, and that's really because it showcases the demographics of the county. So you can swipe back and forth, and it's really immersive. So if you click on a census tract, if you click on an actual census tract, you can go into it, and you can see the spending patterns that they have in the county. So it's quite immersive. It shows what they like to do, where they live, how much they spend. So really, really great data tool. So last, I want to end with this email behind me. Now, as I mentioned, I am no GIS expert. Our team didn't set out to create a best practice. We knew we had a story to tell, and we were able to do that with the ESRI suite of products. And so don't be shy to take risks. Don't be shy to be able to tell your story, because you never know the next story you will inspire. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think as a group of departments, you can see for those that are wanting to look at information on how we better get the word out and tell our story, Reg and his team have done a phenomenal job. And it's important that you understand their efforts and understand all that imagery that's going into it, because that should have a part to play in the departments that are reaching out to the community with services, whether it's airports, parks, museums, land use, and others. For us to work together and see those resources and figure out if we do an activity in this place, will it affect millennials? And Reg will be the first one to tell you what they want to do and where they are. So it's opportunities like that when we work together, we can utilize that department to be a resource internally to the county to help us get better at targeting our activities and our services. Next, I'd like to introduce Julie Hernandez from the Land Use Service Department to talk about fire hazard abatement.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today representing Land Use Services and sharing our experience and success story working with ISD and GIS. Fire hazard abatement is a very important program. We educate, inform, and enforce the defensible space and fuels reduction guidelines for San Bernardino County. Our fire hazard abatement team surveys over 400,000 parcels. We generate and send over 40,000 notices and complete up to 3,000 abatements a year. Our old process involved our fire hazard abatement officers doing windshield surveys, determining property boundaries, and putting notes in that 11 by 17 sized parcel book, assessor's parcel book. As they completed their surveys, they would come back to the office and then transfer the notes from this parcel book onto a notice list. And the reason the fire hazard abatement officers needed to do that was because they were usually the only ones that could read the notes after their surveys. So that took many hours for them in the office when they could be out in the field conducting inspections. As they finished the notice list, they would pass those on to our office assistants, who spent hours and hours completing data input so that they could generate the 40,000 notices. So there's a lot of time spent. At times, this process took up to 2 weeks. So that meant that our first initial inspection was 2 weeks old, and a lot of things happened in 2 weeks, including the property owner completing the abatement, and now they're getting a letter or a notice from us, and they don't know why, and they're a little confused, and so they're calling our office to get some explanation. Our old notice was good. It contained all the necessary information that's required by our code. It was very descriptive, but as you'll notice, our new notice has photos. And as we all know, a photo is worth 1,000 words. So just this change alone has made a dramatic change in our program. It's decreased the amount of phone calls we're getting from people that are confused about what they need to do. Because along with the reference photo, they're getting a photo of all the violations, along with the corrective actions. The Survey 123 program that was customized for us by ISD GIS and for our fire hazard abatement program has allowed us also to have this dashboard that gives us a very good historical record of where notices are being sent, what types of notices or violations are we seeing in areas, so that we can look back and analyze how we're doing, what we're doing, maybe focusing on education and different approaches other than just a notice. We have that time now to look at this type of information, and we can share it with our county partners as well as our contract entities so that they understand and can see what's happening in their area. Here's some photos of our staff using the iPad that they run the application, that Survey 123. The application has definitely motivated and inspired our staff to be more creative. They see that there just a small change, what a small change has done for our program. It has increased our customer service level, and it's really helped bring a positive attitude into our office. And I'd just like to say thank you to ISD and GIS for allowing us to be one of the first programs that was able to use this. And I hope that this is good information so that you can look at something like this for your office. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. What a wonderful example of management working together with technology to make staff's work easier. And I'm sure that folks not getting notices after they've already abated makes your life easier too. Because I'm sure they were calling not just confused, but probably a little bit frustrated and angry too. Next, we have the Storm Patrol and the use of drone technology. Let's welcome Ryan Hunsicker and Tim Stiles.
Morning. My name is Ryan Hunsicker. I work with Department of Public Works, and my colleague here, Tim Stiles, in the audience right there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Public Works. About 90% of the work that we do at the Department of Public Works is somewhere located on the ground. The location answers a lot of questions for us. The ability to take complex engineering, land surveying information that is number-driven, a lot of spreadsheets, and be able to see that on a map becomes very powerful for us. What I'm going to talk today about is about Storm Patrol, how we utilize GIS in this effort. Whenever there is a significant rainstorm within the county, Public Works sends staff out into the field, and we monitor our flood control facilities to make sure that they are performing adequately. So we're trying to get a proactive approach to dangerous floods that may occur and see if we can mitigate those before a major issue happens. So we do this Storm Patrol by utilizing Operations Dashboard, ESRI product, and Collector app, which Collector app is a cell phone app that it can install on Android and iPhones. We use tablets in the field to do this. And I'm going to go through a demo of the Storm Patrol app. And I'm also going to do a demo of the drone imagery and what we're doing with that here at Public Works. All right, so first I'm going to jump into drone imagery. So we've all heard about drones in the news lately. What we're using drones for in Public Works is to do monitoring and getting precise elevations and coordinates on objects. So what we're looking at here is drone imagery that was conducted over the San Timoteo landfill. And this imagery was taken in 2019. We also have the imagery from 2018. And now that we have imagery and the data behind the imagery to allow this map to be in 3 dimensions, we can actually see the difference between 2018 and 2019 very clearly in a web map. And this data is being taken from a drone, processed in Public Works, and then produced into a web map, very easy to use so anybody can open it up and utilize it. Before WebGIS was around, this could only be seen on very few people with very powerful computers. And it's a little bit more than just a pretty picture. We can actually do measurements along this data. We can get different reports, and we can see this information visually. We can do pop-ups so we can see the volume of debris in this landfill from year over year. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and then we're going to talk about Storm Patrol. Again, we send staff in the field using GIS technology to monitor our flood control facilities during a major storm. So we've been doing this for many, many years. In the old way we do it, we would get a CB radio, and our staff would go out, drive in vehicles. It could be in the middle of the night whenever it's raining, and we'd have to send staff to observe what is happening in our flood control facilities. And every hour or so, we would make a call out to our staff and have them report what they observed. So when GIS came into Department of Public Works, we immediately saw the need to get data into our office a little bit more faster than on the hour, so we can make decisions based on this data. So this web map was created and integrated into a dashboard application. We can see here our routes that our storm patrol drives. So in each one of these stops, they make an observation. Along with that data, we're able to integrate additional layers that help us make decisions during a major storm event. So, for example, we have our cameras along our basins where we can get a live picture of what is happening at that facility, at that location. We also integrated our road closures. This is a live feed of our road closures that Public Works has closed a road. That helps our staff and the public to know that a road has been closed at a certain location. So with the application on the smartphones, our staff is able to make observations, and at each observation, they can now take a photo of what is occurring. So they can report to us back at Public Works, where we have a department command center, and we at the department command center can now see exactly what's occurring along our facilities at each one of these locations that our staff indicates that there's a problem. They can be color-coded over here on the right, so we can go through and see all the various reports that have come in. This data that we're looking at here is from the February storm that we had earlier this year. Along with the data that staff comes upon, they also do reports at our basins to make sure that they are not going to overtop. So each one of these on the other side here has a report of where our basin is, and we can see the percentage of the capacity that's available. So if I go over to Cactus Basin number 1, we can see during the February storm, the capacity available got down to 12% at this location. We have a little gauge here that indicates the maximum capacity here is 16 feet of water. So right now they're reporting about 13.8. So it helps us make decisions very quickly. We're able also to have our staff go out in the field and do verifications that yes, there is almost 14 feet of water at this location. And what do we need to do to make sure that this basin performs adequately? Along with that information is obviously there is homelessness within the county of San Bernardino, and sometimes we come across situations like this where there's actually a homeless encampment down in one of our facilities. This is very timely information that we receive back in the office that we can make appropriate calls to the sheriff's office to help the individual at that location. Also, with the drone data that we're able to acquire, our after action after a flood occurs helps us tremendously. We're looking at damage from the February storm here along one of our county facilities, a county road that got washed out. So within a couple of days of the storm, we were able to send staff into the field, collect this imagery, process it, bring it back into our office, and then display it on a web map, something that anybody can open up as long as they have the right password anywhere. So now that this web technology and GIS has been integrated, we can disseminate this information out to anybody that we need to. And that is my presentation for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. That's amazing. All that imagery. Wonderful to be able to get that right at your fingertips. All right, so now we have Lindsay King from ISD to talk about the point-in-time count. Thanks.
As many of you know, every year, San Bernardino County conducts a homeless point-in-time count. This is, in its essence, a homeless census. It's an effort to count the individuals and families living with homelessness in San Bernardino County, as well as to capture subpopulation information about them, such as gender and age and ethnicity. And in the past, this was always done using paper surveys. So volunteers on the day of the count would deploy out into the field with the paper survey and a clipboard and a pen, and they'd use the questions on the survey to interview the homeless people they encounter and then record their responses. But this wasn't always a simple process. There's some complexity in that survey form. Instances where, if they answered yes to 4 and yes to 5, then skip to question 9. Or if it was yes to 4 but no to 5, then skip to question 7, that kind of thing. So the volunteers had to be pretty careful and mindful about how they completed those surveys. And then once the count was complete, all those paper surveys would be gathered up by each participating city and sent off for data entry and analysis. So people had to sit and read the information on each paper survey form and enter it into a database so it could be analyzed. And that's a process that takes time and runs the risk of introducing error into the data as well. And then once that analysis is complete, we would end up with a breakdown of numbers for the county and then for each city or community as well. But that was about as much geographic detail as we could get. We had numbers for the city or community level, but not really any more detail at the time. But that was then. And after a pilot program in 2018, we decided to fully modernize our approach to the 2019 point-in-time count. So we've left those paper surveys behind us, and we adopted a mobile application developed by ESRI called Survey 123 for ArcGIS. And on the day of the count, volunteers deployed out with the Survey 123 app on their mobile devices, an iPhone or an Android phone or a tablet, as well as the San Bernardino County point-in-time count survey that ISD developed to work within that Survey 123 app. And they would use those to interview the homeless people they encounter. And this vastly simplified the experience for the volunteer. Instead of having to do that cerebral gymnastics of figuring out which questions to skip and which questions to ask, the survey took care of all that behind the scenes. There was a logic built into the survey form that made sure the volunteer was only actually presented with the questions that they needed to get filled in. So the feedback we got from volunteers was overwhelmingly positive. We had one volunteer call into the command center on the day of the count just to tell us that they thought the new app was groovy. So that was good to hear. And then the cool thing was, as those volunteers were submitting those surveys from their devices, they were getting written directly to ESRI's ArcGIS Online cloud. So that completely eliminated the data entry phase altogether. That saved us time and helped maintain the integrity of the data. And what that also meant was, on the day of the count, those of us who were in the command center were able to see the data come in real time. We had an operations dashboard up on the wall of the command center. This was built using ESRI's operations dashboard technology, and that updated every minute with new data coming in from the field. So we were able to monitor the progress of the count as it took place, as well as get an early glimpse of rough numbers as the day went on. And that was very exciting for those of us in the room. And then on top of that, we were able to leverage the GPS location of the volunteers' devices to get a point location where each survey was completed. So in the past, we were able to say, okay, 34 surveys were completed in this city. But now we're able to say 34 surveys were completed in this city, And this is where each one was completed. We've got a point location for each survey. So that allows us to see things like clusters and hotspots that we were never able to see before. And then we can also layer the point and time count data on a map with other data related to homelessness and see what other geographic patterns in homelessness emerge that we were never able to see before with paper surveys. It was a really thrilling project, and we look forward to doing it again in 2020. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Again, another opportunity and a way for us to simplify, to make great efficiencies, and then to get a lot better results based on the accurate application of information. Phenomenal. Next, I'd like to call up Mike Jones from the Sheriff's Department to talk about the County Homeless Initiative and the HOPE team. Thanks.
Good morning. So a lot of you know what we do because we work with a lot of you, or you've seen our presentation, so I'll kind of be short on that. But this all was started, CEO McBride has a homeless advisory board that meets on a monthly basis, and one of the discussions was around how law enforcement that's dealing with homeless was collecting data. And as many of you know, all your departments are siloed, so is law enforcement. So very siloed, our information isn't shared among others. So trying to bridge that gap and try to find a way to share the information. And what we found is, and even for some of your departments that are working within cities and with cities and stuff like that, so every government agency has an ESRI enterprise basically in San Bernardino County, and we're able to share data, we're able to give them user access using their accounts rather than the county accounts to build a lot of this data that I'll go over that we've been doing. So we know San Bernardino County is the largest county in the nation, 20,000 square miles, but where are homeless there? And then how do we, effectively work with those homeless with our team and the resources that are out there? So this is some of the historical data that we were able to dump in here, and you could see in the last little bit where homeless was, and then here's a heat map of homelessness around the county based on the data that we put in. So prior to using the ESRI systems, we used to use Google Sheets. So that was live for us and online, and it was basically an Excel spreadsheet. But what we had to do is we filled out a 3x5 card, a field interview card with information. We had to go back to the office and, if we got there early or if we got there late, or we'd wait till the end of the month when we had to have report our numbers, and we'd scramble to put them all in into the Excel spreadsheet. So we were able to take that data and dump it in with some of the historical data with some of the numbers that you'll see throughout this presentation. So in 2014, Sheriff McMahon implemented our team. There's the three of us for our small county and our sergeant, who's our supervisor. So we work throughout the county to try to link homeless with resources to move them beyond homeless, working with a lot of your agencies on a regular basis to try to get them beyond that. So like I said, we used to use that 3x5 card. What we did is the survey 1, 2, 3, as other people have mentioned, could be downloaded onto a phone, could be bookmarked, whatever. So in the survey that we use that I show in here, you need a user account. So what we did is you see the other police departments within the county that are using this. So they're using their user account. You pick the area, the city, and as we scroll through it, you'll see several things that kind of the data that the homeless side of things to try to link them. One of the things is that GPS locates you when you're out in the field off of your cell phone. And we have two types of things that we're keeping mapping and tracking. So we want to know about homeless camps and individuals. So the encampments I'll talk about shortly. Individuals, as we scroll through, keeping names, date of births, race, next of kin. That goes back into collaborating with our coroner's office. So if they have an unidentified person that's out in the middle of the desert, well, who is that person? Does it look like there was a homeless camp? Well, they have the capability of overlaying our map into theirs to see what people are around the body that might have been found. So now we have a way to contact family based on that person. Notes, disability factors, if they're a veteran, and a lot of these, if you click yes, it goes to additional questions. The next one does. So kind of mapping them, tracking them through their progress to get beyond homeless. It has the capability on the cell phone, if you scroll to the bottom a little bit, for pictures, of encampments or a picture of the homeless person, and then we could share that information with a provider when they go, often in whatever department might be, if something says it's at 3rd and Waterman, well, there's 4 corners. And we hear a lot of times, well, I didn't see the person. Well, they're not out there spinning a sign saying, I'm the homeless guy looking for services. So now we have a picture of the encampment, picture of the person that we're able to share. What it does from there is all those questions go into the collector, and it builds these maps. All these dashboards are customizable. Those Survey 1, 2, 3 questions are all customizable. So we add and take away questions. There's been times when I'm out in the field or I'm at a meeting and I'll call Natalie and say, hey, I really don't like that question anymore, or hey, I want to add that question, and 5 minutes later she's like, reload your survey and it's ready. So it's really cool capability. You can see the mapping here. Mostly in our county. We kind of have fun because there was one at Dodger Stadium with encampments, but the yellows are encampments and the reds are individuals. So you could search that. So when Natalie clicks veterans, you can see how many things go away. And as we click more go away. So when you're looking for those different type of people, or we use targeted mapping, targeted outreach, as different providers. So like IHP is a big provider that's coming on board for their members. So we could actually pull a list of IHP members, and if Natalie could grab at the bottom there, and it'll actually create a report, the little arrow in the middle for the report. So it automatically builds a report. So rather than us trying to look for names and try to build it on Excel, this could be exported to a document. We could take out the latitude, longitude, whatever we might want to take out, and we could actually present a list to them within minutes. Next part is it builds these dashboards. So we have these dashboards. This particular one we're able to query. So this is some of our historical data. Like I said, with the Excel spreadsheet, some of it wasn't able to come into here. So it's not in real time, except the past 2 years, but you can see we could take it down by Apple Valley, and there over the past 4 or 5 years, there's some of the data of what it looks like in those different cities. So just yesterday, I had a captain on our department say, hey, can I get the stats for my city? And 5 minutes later, I just pulled this, I emailed him the stats. A few minutes later, I got a call, hey, what about my surrounding cities? So within 10, 15 minutes, I was able to have the whole region with stats to him for whatever purposes he's using that for. So it's really customizable. All those questions, again, you could search it, set up your dashboards like that, the reporting agencies, things like that, so you can see what other PDs are putting in or not putting in, and all those different things. One of the other things is obviously, like Ryan was saying, we had water for the first time in several years. So this is a picture we took when we were doing outreach up in Victorville. The Mojave River runs north up through the desert. And in 5 years of doing this, I've never seen water in there. So you can see that. So one of the things we do that we worked with flood control is when that encampment one that I mentioned earlier, I'll talk about encampments. When we drop a pin and our GPS location is on any of the flood control properties which are highlighted there, it automatically notifies flood control of an encampment. It doesn't give them any other information except there's an encampment there. Flood control is able to go back, and you can see on there, this is their dashboard actually for what their homeless guy sees. And they're on the left there, they have 7 days of info. They go out, they verify that camp, they change it, it'll go on to their other side, and then they work with their crews to address that encampment if it needs to be cleaned up. We were also able, with the opening of the Seven Oaks and with this water, when they opened Silverwood, we were able to go down and notify the homeless people, shared the mapping with Victorville and things like that, to go notify those people, hey, there's going to be water coming this way, because we rarely have water flow in a lot of the rivers. So it's been very beneficial for that. We also have Homeless Activity Reporter. So this one is kind of cool. It doesn't require a user login. So the point of this was to give it to all the flood control employees that are out in the field, or Caltrans. We're also working with County Fire, and County Fire is going to have that on all their iPads. So when they do a run in reference to a homeless person, they'll be able to answer a few questions like it shows here. It automatically GPSs if they want to put details, if they want to take a photo, and then who's putting that information in. This has to be in a web page, so it is open to the public, but we don't really advertise it. But it's in the sheriff's webpage under our program. So if you want to download it, bookmark it on your phone, and it goes to a dashboard when we're out in the field to follow up with folks. So the beneficial thing of having fire on board, and we're putting this in all of our patrol units and doing training in the future on utilizing that. When they do that, it builds this dashboard, and we can see the encampments on the map there. Those are all the historical, but you see on the right the individuals or encampments that are reported. And we can follow up to offer services to those people, trying to cut down those calls for service for fire. They're not responding to the same person that's calling 911 to get out of the rain or whatever it might be. Or our calls for service and offering the services. Flood control also puts into there, so they find that encampment. We'll go out, offer those services, try to move those people beyond homelessness. On the point in time count, Lindsay was talking about how their side did it. One of the things we did for the first time, and I think we're the only county, 13 counties in California did digital point in time counts, but none of them had the data like this to utilize. So what we did is, for the first time, usually the volunteers are given a map of hot zones. We were able to take our stuff for the past year, and ISD dumped that into a map. So now they had targeted mapping to go to where the homeless were. So typically when you do the point in time count, they give you that map, and maybe they have 10 square blocks and 6 of it's residential. Well, if the people walk all the 6 blocks of residential for the 4 hours, and they don't go behind the buildings, then what's the point? Because we didn't capture those homeless. So we were able to send the volunteers to that location. The other thing that we were able to do is the following day we had a conference call, and I kind of knew what they were looking for. I called Natalie and I said, "Hey, can we build a heat map of ours and the point in time count pins on top of that so we could see areas that might not have been counted?" So some of those rural areas of the county, we have additional time to count. And we've been doing that year after year, but typically we go out and we find out, oh, they were counted. So we kind of wasted our time to go out there. Now we were able to see no one was counted, and there's a high concentration of homeless. So we went out there the following day and counted those folks to make sure they were included in the count. One of the other things is our START team, Sheriff's Transition and Reentry team. It's in our jail. As we've moved to county prison and people reentering our community, we have a group there of a couple folks that are targeting people that are re-entering the community and might be into homelessness. Maybe they want to get cleaned up, whatever it is. So we use the Survey 123 app. They use it on an iPad in the jail facility. Those are all customizable questions. And again, it builds that dashboard to link those, of showing them of the people link into services and things like that. Again, trying to keep those people off the streets and back on better track in life. So the results of that, we're able to monitor by mapping that homeless population so we could see the trends and things like that. We're able to build analytics right away, the ability to look for a person. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm looking for this certain veteran," we're able to type that name and you can see where that person is moved and to give a better general area. It's increased collaboration between departments. So obviously with the coroner's office and flood control, we're working on getting dashboards to any of the departments that we're working with that are affected by homelessness. So it gives kind of that real-time look into homelessness. One of the talks at the Homeless Advisory Board is a daily point-in-time count. Certainly we can't all go out and count every day like we do the big point-in-time count, but as we see first responders that are putting in data, we could build that data for them to see in real time. And then that community involvement with folks putting in data also. So we've been very happy with what we're able to do and all the linkages and working together because there is not another database that we can all share information. And ESRI is using some incredible things moving forward on all kinds of different things that are very beneficial to what we're doing, and then your departments as well, because I've been to their conferences and stuff, and amazing work. So if you could think it, I bet they could do it. So appreciate your time.
It's wonderful when we can take some time to sit back and not only hear about all the great stuff our county departments are doing in one venue at one time, but also to have an environment where in this beautiful facility kind of gets the juices flowing as to what are the possibilities of how do we use information to better serve constituents, to better serve the programs that we're doing. Lots of ideas. I think from a county team, we may at a department head meeting take some of this back and do a little roundtables on how do we utilize this in our different areas of responsibilities, the different groups of departments, etc. Well, as we get back into the program, I'm going to call Jennifer back up, who needs no introduction at this point in the program. Thank you, Jennifer.
Right. Okay, so we've seen about 7 county solutions, and we were trying to find or select solutions that represented the different components or technologies that we have or that ESRI offers for us. So the data collector, analysis, the story map. Now, that being said, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, we have about 128 solutions that are deployed already at the county and in production. So we've made quite a bit of headway in this area. And I'm really excited now to introduce the ESRI team because they're going to be talking about what's in the future, what's around the corner, and what will be available to us down the road. So the first speaker, and again, when you see what's coming, look at the examples and again, think of how would your department potentially take advantage of or leverage the tools that you're going to see. So I'm excited to announce the first speaker, which is Brenda Wolf, and she'll be demoing ArcGIS Hub. All right, thank you.
All right, so yes, I'm Brenda Wolf. I'm the product manager for ArcGIS Hub, so I work with our development team and shape the requirements. So living in San Bernardino County myself, I know that I personally want the county to be a happy, healthy, safe, enjoyable place to live, and those are great aspirations, but how do we make it happen? The way we do that, you do that, is through initiatives. And things like we just heard about, reducing homelessness is an initiative, earthquake preparedness, anything that's of importance to the community is an initiative. And initiatives are intended to drive and focus action. They're a framework for action. And you being at the center of the action, to accomplish those big tasks, one of your goals, or ideally you would include other members of the community, so nonprofits or NGOs in the community, university resources available to you, community leaders to help you achieve those initiatives. And ideally you want them to be informed, contribute data, because often you don't have the data, it's in the hands of others in the community. Ideally you would align resources and cooperate together to address those initiatives. So why we like initiatives is, and you'll hear me say that word a lot, why we like initiatives is because they take all that untapped potential in the community and they align it around a specific focused objective, right? So again, the general public, trusted collaborators that you could leverage, engaged volunteers in the community, and staff. But notice there's usually a small number of staff. And those staff typically, the other reason we like initiatives is because they pull staff from across departments typically, as well as data from across departments. So often we see people or customers have a lot of data, but it's not really yet aimed at a specific thing. So that's why we like this idea of the initiative as an alignment capability. So this is the big picture that I work on, or that the Hub product team is working on, is how can we support this framework for collaboration and engagement, both across the departments and with other agencies as well, and then the broader community. So that's where we've arrived at ArcGIS Hub as an offering, and it's an easy-to-configure cloud platform that organizes your people, your engagement tools, and your actions to accomplish initiative goals. That's our big mission. So how do we do that? Encompasses that? What's in the box, you might say? ArcGIS Hub comes with a framework for initiatives which help you to organize your content and collaboration tools. So you may have your own content and apps that you, like we saw Mike Jones used a bunch of our tools. We also supply content and apps for specific initiatives that we include as well. It also includes something called sites or websites. So Mike showed the ability to create a beautiful story map that explains things. A website is another way of doing that. And with ArcGIS Hub, you can have unlimited websites or web pages for your initiatives. And it's a way to engage the community. Usually it's the first thing people think of is to go to a website, right? The other thing that ArcGIS Hub includes is a teams framework. So how do you organize people into teams? Because again, we're interested in action. And not only teams, but those teams can be enriched, not just by staff, but by the fact that ArcGIS Hub includes identities for the community. So anyone in the community can have an identity or an account in your hub. So this means you could invite university students, researchers, not members of nonprofits, the general public, could be part of a team. So let your imagination go wild. Any kind of team you could have. And once the community has identity, they can do things like follow an initiative or subscribe to it to be updated. They can provide feedback, they can attend events. ArcGIS Hub includes an events management system. So if you're familiar with Eventbrite, if anybody's familiar with Eventbrite, yes? Okay, so ArcGIS Hub has, you can think of it as Eventbrite capabilities in it, but they're inherently spatially enabled. So you can see where your events are, what percentage of the population you covered, all that good stuff. So it has an event system, and then also built-in performance tracking. So how well are you reaching the community? How many people have followed your initiative? How many people have attended your events? All those kind of metrics are part of the offering as well. So where do you start? That's a lot of capabilities, big objectives. So here's the typical evolution that we see, is that there's kind of this engagement maturity path. For any particular issue, typically there's a website somewhere about that with one-way policy communication. And there might be some data sharing on that initiative and some ad hoc citizen involvement or resident involvement. And that's today addressed in our products by ArcGIS Hub, the basic subscription level. And that allows our customers to create sites and share open data. And I noticed last night that San Bernardino County is already doing this, so kudos. You have an open data site, you're already sharing it, so you're on the path. Good job. Yay! The other thing we started noticing is that, or the next evolution is organizing your data, content, and people around specific initiatives. And I walked in early to see Mike's presentation, and that's basically what he's doing. So how do we address homelessness? That's a specific issue. He's organizing surveys, story maps, data, content, all that around specific initiatives. Beyond that, now, how do we include the community? How do we get them to contribute information? How do we get them to report where they're seeing things? How do we get them to co-create tools for us? How do we get university students to do analysis for us? How do we get minions to do our work? So a little maniacal. This is where the premium capabilities of the product come into play. And that's that initiative framework, the ability for anybody to have an identity to really participate in and do action. So how would I know the difference between, say, an open data site and somebody who has our premium offering? Just to give you a tip here. This is an example site for the community of Sunnyshire. What's immediately different is there's a star here, which means anybody in the community can follow this initiative. And there's a little bit of a difference in tone too. Typically, it's usually you're kind of trying to engage the community to do things. So, hey, you live here, why not join our volunteer program? You know, it's action-oriented. Again, click to follow this initiative. Be part of the solution. Click to get involved. And this is, again, where we're able to report out metrics, so aiming the data at the initiative. Don't just sit on that gold. Show the community that this is data-driven. How many volunteers are there? How can you get involved? You know, let's get some people doing things. Find events that are going on near you. Again, what we saw before, dashboards included in the site. How are things getting better? Hopefully they are getting better. That would be good. So again, reporting the metrics that come from your system of record right here on the site. That's the other beauty of Hub, is that it's tied into your system of record, right? So it's all connected. And then again, here's an example of that events management system that's built right into the system. So I can attend an event, really easy to set up. Again, everything's spatially oriented. I can attend this event, I can share it on social media, I can follow it, all that good stuff. So that's the example of how you might know you have a premium initiative. Switching back, trying to switch back. Booth fellows. There we go. Awesome. So that's an example of premium. And again, the goal here is to take all that gold mine of data and assets that you have, connect them to your larger initiative, and kind of bridge that gap that we see. So how do we create an initiative? There are two options. What's an initiative? One, you can create it from scratch. So create your own site, assemble your own apps and tools, kind of like we saw Mike do with homelessness. He already has all of that good stuff. So you could create your own initiative and just kind of now add your team and other things around it. Or you can use one of our ready-to-use templates. So we have found that a lot of people are addressing homelessness and economic development issues and several things. So we've tried to come up with the best possible starter templates for you and put them in a gallery. So things like, how do you grow the local economy and promote it? How do you report on performance? How do you prevent Zika and vector-borne disease? So we have initiative templates that have beautifully designed websites already in the box. They have all the tools assembled for you, and you just configure them and pick and choose what you want. It kind of bootstraps the process. Again, we have a reduce homelessness initiative, but you could create your own. We also have a new initiative template coming soon, and that's to encourage feedback on projects. So we're going to see urban, I believe today. This was co-developed with that team, so it's to encourage, like, once you have a development, say a capital improvement project going on, how do you get community involvement? That's what that initiative's about. We also have a roadmap for initiatives, so if any of these check your box, you might be excited about some of the forthcoming ones, like how do you manage elections and all those volunteers and have transparent elections and things like that. So the other question we get is, oh, that's great. It's nice you have some initiatives, but ours are unique. Can we make our own initiative template? Because we want to reuse it again and again and again, or we want to create an initiative for others to adopt and follow, because we kind of want to standardize data collection, let's say, and for other reasons. So yes, you can create your own template. We have the ability to, we have an initiative template builder, so you can make your own gallery of initiatives. And where this is useful, for example, is if you have repeated projects that come up. So the it's not Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, Department of Transportation, they're always doing road construction projects, and they want to have the same standard template for communicating with the public and with the same tools in it. So they've created their template with a consultant did this, and now anytime they have a project, they just click that template, fill it in, configure it, and they already have a website that's beautifully designed. They already have all the elements that they should have for the community. And so now for all those hundreds of projects, they just light up that template. So the other thing, real quick, is the power of teams. We've been talking about kind of the elements of an initiative, but how do you leverage the minions and the people? So this is how we kind of think of engagement, is that there's a small number of staff putting up a website or some sort of digital asset for usually the anonymous public to consume, right? Just anonymous people out there. But we kind of want to harness them. So we want to kind of start to get these initiative followers. Who's interested in this initiative? How can we continue to reach out to them and communicate with them? So there's followers. The other thing we want to do is change those people or turn them into volunteers. How do we get volunteers? Because we have a small number of staff. How do we get volunteers and really leverage them to reach, say, the hard-to-reach community? Because often the people we want to reach are hard to reach, like the homeless population. In the census, hard-to-count population. The other thing is, how do we get them to co-create content with us? How do we get them to make the story map or do the analysis? And then maybe you need some external reviewers who review your content before it goes public. So there's this whole team framework that the product is set up to support you with. And again, what matters is that you get those identities for the community so you can actually leverage them. So I want to focus on one particular pattern because it's one we see a lot, and it's one we're focused on in the product team, which is having collaborators co-create content with staff, surface those in a website to people out in the field who are trying to reach the hard-to-reach community. And one of those areas, I'm glad it came up today, is homelessness. A couple of examples, one being Anchorage, Municipality of Anchorage. They are co-creating content with, say, the likes of United Way, other government agencies, shelters. They're bringing all that data together because the municipality doesn't have that data. These other agencies do, these other entities do. So they're using the hub to gather that data, present it back out to the community, and yes, they can do it to the general community, but more importantly, to volunteers out in the field. So if somebody's interacting with the homeless population, they can go to that website, that initiative page, sign in, get specific tools for them, and then interact with the homeless population. Another example is the Census 2020, working with the state of California. I don't know if anybody's involved with Census 2020. Anybody? You are? Okay. So we're working on their SWORD project with them, which is the goal is to reach the hard-to-count population, people who are not likely to fill out their census form. So the state is working with community-based organizations up and down the state to create tools to plan how they're going to reach that population. And then during the census, they will be using tools to go interact with that population and report back. So that's a huge project. So I've gone quickly, but just to say, so we realize that this is a big undertaking. There's technology. We're building technology to support it, ArcGIS Hub. But it's not just about the technology. It really is about the people and the process as well. So in our work with our customers, we have come up with a hub methodology or a hub blueprint where really only one column of it is about the technology. And we have workshops where we help with strategy and training and what should be the roadmap for accomplishing the initiatives and what are the actual concrete steps to take to accomplish them. So I just want to leave you with that so that we can help you in that dimension as well.
Great. Morning, everyone. My name is Christy Ma, and I work on the ArcGIS Urban team within ESRI's Smart Cities sector. Our communities are under intense economic, social, and environmental stress. The image here is a 3D rendering of upcoming projects in Melbourne, Australia. As you can see, there is a lot of development happening there. In fact, I was there last month, and from almost anywhere in the city, I could look up and count at least 5 cranes. With this degree of development happening, collaboration and consensus is ever more important. However, what we are seeing today is that there is still no common platform for key planning stakeholders, including the government, citizens, AEC firms, and developers, to think, to communicate, and to address these challenges together. That's a key reason why we've developed ArcGIS Urban, a web-based 3D system for urban planning, where key planning stakeholders can collaborate on cities' active plans and projects. And we've focused on making the system simple to use and even fun to learn. It is an interactive 3D system and can work with your existing 2D and 3D data. And Urban offers a set of web-based planning and design tools that can support both long-range and current planning initiatives. Now let's see this in action. Let me show you how the City and County of San Francisco is using ArcGIS Urban in their specific area plans and development review process. Here you can see San Francisco and its 3D building models. These layers of buildings and trees provide context for all the plans and projects going on throughout the city. ArcGIS Urban can support both untextured and textured content, enable you to choose which base map to use depending on the circumstances. Urban even has a see-through underground view for you to visualize the county's underground features, like pipes or parking structures. As you can see clearly in the interface, there are 4 key components in Urban: projects, plans, indicators, and ideas. Let's take a look at indicators first. So indicators illustrate important factors in your planning process. Out of the box, Urban provides 6 demographic indicators from census and ACS data. Population change is one of the pre-authored indicators that will be available for the entire United States. San Francisco is experiencing rapid population growth, along with associated pressures on housing. As we can see, high population growth is occurring in the Mission Bay area. With ArcGIS Urban, ESRI is providing a platform where key planning stakeholders can take stock of existing conditions and collaborate on a shared vision for the future. So let's jump into the editing mode of this Mission Bay plan and use Urban to create some alternative scenarios. So when we create a new plan, Urban automatically creates a copy of the zoning, parcels, and other information within the plan boundary. If we look at the zoning, you can see a full breakdown of every zone in the city. Each zone has a spatial extent and a set of parameters that reflect the zoning regulations, like FAR, height, multi-level setbacks, and allowed space use. Typically, zoning code is published in legal text, a format that is not only hard for citizens to understand, but also difficult for planners to use effectively. By formatting this code into Urban's data model, a 3D visual representation can be generated for maximum zoning envelopes, essentially the maximum extent that the building will need to fall within to be legally viable. Then, by assigning building types to redevelop, plausible building forms will appear. And these forms are generated automatically within Urban based on the underlying zoning and building types that you assign. And these parameters and types can be customized to suit your county and your plan. Now let's take a look at the impact of this scenario. We can see how this scenario performs against the plan targets. We can also see the overall makeup of space use throughout the plan area. These factors within the space use tells us how the capacity matrix are calculated. For example, 300 square feet of office generates one job. And you can modify and localize these factors based on your model. And once ready, we can share this plan and certain scenarios with the public. And they can toggle between them to gain a perspective on the scenarios and their impact. We can also link this plan to a public web page, in this case, an ArcGIS Hub page, containing detailed information to keep the public informed and engaged. In addition to the web-based scenario planning tool, you can also visualize projects countywide and share internally or externally with the public, and connect them to the permitting status from initial review to approval and construction. If you have 3D models of the proposed project, you can take this visualization a step further and add them into Urban. We can start to visualize new proposed buildings in the surrounding context, which facilitates the project review process. You can even visualize shadows based on months and even time of day. Here you can first see a sketched styled building. It's useful when you don't want to make this project look too final. And then we can use a switcher and cycle through different proposals as the project moves along in the development pipeline. And finally, Urban drives better engagement by gathering community input through the ideas component. Planners in Detroit are calling this feature digital sticky notes, and I think it's a great way to describe it. These ideas can be tied to user identity through Hub or posted anonymously. ArcGIS Urban is an engine for collaboration. It delivers a growing amount of urban data and analytics to the hands of city planners, decision makers, and citizens. So to summarize, with ArcGIS Urban, you can visualize your projects countywide and even connect them with your existing permitting system. Urban will also improve planning productivity by streamlining rezoning and land use planning directly in the web in 3D. Furthermore, Urban can increase transparency and understanding and drive better engagement by allowing public to directly comment within your 3D context. The ESRI User Conference next month marks an important milestone, the official release of ArcGIS Urban version 1. Right now, we're working with our early adopters to help them prepare their data and deploy their urban app to begin use them in their planning workflow. So let us know if you're interested in becoming one of our early adopters. We can explore options to get you started right now with Urban. Thank you so much for your time. Please feel free to reach out if you have any question. Now we'll pass off to Ethan to bring us from urban to indoors.
Thanks, Christine. My name is Ethan Franklin, and I'm a member of our Smart Cities team here at ESRI, focused on ArcGIS Indoors, our new indoor mapping product. I'm very excited to speak to you today because I'm speaking with San Bernardino County, which is my home county. My mother was actually born at San Bernardino Community Hospital, which is now Dignity Health off Mount Vernon. My father was born at Norton Air Force Base in the hospital there before they tore it down in the early 60s, and I was born at Redlands Community Hospital just down the road, so I'm multi-generational San Bernardino County and very proud. Today I'm going to provide an overview of ArcGIS Indoors, covering what it is, why it's important, and share some of the things that we've learned with working with other local governments. So to get started, it's important to understand the history behind Indoors. So for the past decade, ESRI has worked with our customers to develop custom indoor mapping projects. And we learned through that it was very important for our customers to better manage and allocate the most important resources that they have, which are their employees and the assets that you all use. Coincidentally, all of these resources primarily reside indoors, but our customers lack the ability to answer fundamental questions like how are they used, are they underutilized, overutilized, when do they next require maintenance? And it's currently a broken system. 2/3 of organizations in the US rely on some combination of CAD, Excel, pen and paper, emails, disparate project files, things like that to manage our resources. So the process is expensive. The National Institute of Standards and Technology reported that it costs around 33 cents per square foot a year to maintain space like this. So that's why we built ArcGIS Indoors. Indoors supports operations and mobility by making floor-aware assets accessible through 2D and 3D web maps and through mobile apps that are indoor location aware. So that means they're compatible with indoor positioning systems. So making floor plans and assets available and visual to everyone who interacts with the space, San Bernardino County could address multiple inefficiencies. And we'll talk about 3 main ones real quick, what we call creating a common operating picture, how to improve service delivery, and then increase situational awareness. So to better plan and allocate accessible resources for efficient utilization, Indoors provides professional indoor mapping tools to streamline the creation and publishing of these indoor features and map services to create that common operating picture. So you can see this more technical behind-the-scenes look, a tool that our professional services would use to automatically generate routes indoors, plot points of interest indoors and outdoors, and be able to create the wayfinding across a campus or just within a building. Indoor location awareness makes sharing and integration of survey and incident reporting with BIM, that's Building Information Modeling, very easy. It improves service and maintenance delivery times, which ultimately saves money. So this clip shows how easy it is for an employee of the county to report a broken asset, for example, in this case, a projector that has bad resolution. So Indoors would allow all employees, contractors, and visitors to be empowered with survey knowledge of the county's facilities to increase comfort and confidence and allow them to focus on their objectives. And ArcGIS Indoors allows you to maximize your return on workplace investment by enabling unlimited access to the smart workplace system. So it's not licensed by individual or named user, it's not licensed by server processing power, it's licensed by the size of your space. So all employees and visitors can make effective use of your resources and workspaces. Indoors excels at indoor wayfinding, but it can also ingest real-time data streams and show those on the map. So for example, users could opt in to share their location, and then you could issue proximity alerts on tasks that need to be completed nearby, or maybe even see where other coworkers are located in real time. So this is about creating smart buildings and smart workplaces. I'll show a quick demonstration I've prepared and pre-recorded to save on time. So here we have University of Maryland's public-facing campus map. So they have all of their resources searchable across the campus. So it's really easy to find a building. So they can simply search for the engineering building. They can see where that is, and then we can integrate third-party data systems. So this could be campus shuttle stops. We'll do campus emergency phones, and we'll do campus webcams. So you could integrate CCTV camera feeds, for example. Click on that and get a live view in an incident or situation that arises. We'll switch over now to, this is ESRI's Redlands private map. This is our campus map. We have all of our indoor resources mapped here as well in 2D and 3D that are all floor aware with the floor picker there you see. So you can view all of your buildings in either option, 2D or 3D, and we'll turn on safety and security assets. So these are all the fire extinguishers, AEDs, first aid kits, exits, all of our gates, for example, mapped across our campus. And they're ranked based on proximity. So wherever you're located, you'll see the ones closest to you. And from an operational standpoint, let's say this fire extinguisher needs maintenance. So we're able to see the ones closest to us. If this particular one needs servicing, we can share a link to it. We can copy it and just copy paste, or we can integrate with our Outlook. I'll send it to my colleague Bo, for example. He's able to click this actual smart link and it'll pop up on his mobile device, the ArcGIS Indoors mobile app. He can see what it is, see some different attributes about that asset, see what it's called, see when it was last serviced, do whatever information you like to have there. Zoom out, get some perspective. Now we'll zoom in, and because we have an indoor positioning system here on campus, we get a really accurate blue dot indoors. He can generate a route to that with turn-by-turn directions, estimated time of arrival, maybe report back, let me know how long it will take for him to get there, and then he's able to find his way there. Once he's there, open that survey 123 we've heard a lot about today. It's a way to gather information, customizable, configurable. So you're able to do a safety equipment inspection, say the priority is high, for example, firefighting equipment, type that in and support speech to text. Many of you are familiar with this application, so you can say it needs further inspection, and then click to take a photo of that asset, so you can actually log all that information in the system. And ArcGIS Indoors, we have a reference account that we can share. That's LA County. And Los Angeles County it's huge. They have over 4,000 facilities, over 100,000 employees, and their ISD responds to over 60,000 IT service requests a year in person that require on-site visits. And Steve Steinberg is the county GIO. He came here to ESRI during our CIO summit and talked about solving what they call the last mile issue, and what we call solving the cost of getting lost. He explained that by saving just 5 minutes per service request, that was valued at around 4 full-time staff. He did the math, around $280,000 a year on just improving the workflow with indoor wayfinding on one example. So to summarize, ArcGIS Indoors brings GIS inside buildings, provides wayfinding for people, assets in specific rooms, and it supports smart buildings by mapping indoor floor plans. It's a complete indoor mapping and location system. So you might wonder how to get started with a system like this. There's a lot of buildings across the county. You have a lot of different existing systems like asset management systems you'd probably want to integrate. So what things need to be considered? We have ArcGIS Indoors pilot program, but before that, here are 3 key steps and concepts I've listed on how to get started. So the first really is ask questions about what kind of data you have. Usually those are CAD floor plans, what kind of quality those CAD floor plans are in. We bring that into the Indoors platform. The second is if an indoor positioning system would be useful. So this is that blue dot actually on the mobile app. When you have GPS on your phone right now, you're able to use that outside. We're all familiar with that, but as soon as you go indoors, that blue dot gets really large and you can't tell where you are, and it's certainly not floor aware. You might be on the roof, you might be in the basement. We have a floor-aware system using the indoor positioning system, which are Wi-Fi access points that are mapped, or Bluetooth beacons that you'll see actually out in the atrium. And the third is the configuration of the maps and apps and integrating with your current workflows and systems. But I'll be around at the end of this meeting. Please, let's talk. If you're, since you're here, happy to answer any questions. Here's my email address. Feel free to reach out anytime, and I'll be at UC next month. Hope to see you there. Thank you. Now introduce my colleagues. Shiraz and David.
Thank you all for coming. So I'm Shiraz Sohail, and this is David Yu. We are data scientists on the GeoAI team here at ESRI, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we bring machine learning and AI to GIS workflows. So AI has been on the news a lot lately, for good reason. It's used for a bunch of different things, from teaching autonomous vehicles how to drive, facial recognition for unlocking your phone, chatbots to help you interact with customers, counting people and vehicles from CCTV feeds, better predictive healthcare. And really, when we talk about our work, it's going to fall under three major paradigms. So we're going to have object detection and tracking. So this is when you have imagery or video and you're looking to find objects and possibly track them in those videos and images. So anything from like trying to find building footprints from aerial imagery, detecting where road segments are, detecting swimming pools, blight and graffiti, reading road signs and cataloging them, tracking vehicles as they move through an area to understand traffic flow. The second paradigm is prediction. So this is where you're observing a phenomenon and you want to see how it's going to evolve into the future. So this is something like you might want to understand when a water pipe might break, how a disease might spread through the community, where there might be hotspots of crime next month, where fatal accidents might occur. And the third one is pattern detection. So this is where you already have collected a bunch of data and you want to understand the patterns that are already present. So this might be understanding, if we go back to the accidents thing, understanding what kinds of road designs are causing the fatal accidents in your community. Maybe understanding how your neighborhood is served through your hospital system, what the coverage is, understanding where diseases might cluster, stuff like that. So now I'm going to start talking about just some of the projects we do with clients. So this is one where we did 3D building reconstruction using LiDAR, which is a remote sensing technology, and deep learning. So aerial LiDAR is very interesting as a technology. It's basically shooting lasers and building out point clouds for an area. But going from just those point clouds to actual 3D scenes is extremely difficult, time-consuming, and error-prone. So there's an example of rasterized LiDAR. So that's what an analyst would work with. And now imagine taking that image and actually being able to delineate the boundaries of the building, and not only doing that, but delineating the roof types, where the sides of the building are hips and the middle is a gable type roof. It's extremely time consuming when you have thousands of buildings. So we built AI into this. So we trained an AI. First of all, the top left is a point cloud. So that's what your LiDAR return, if you were to pull it into our desktop solution, that's what it would look like. The second is that rasterized LiDAR I talked about that an analyst would work with. And then from there, we train an AI model to go in and first detect building footprints from that LiDAR, mark them, and then also classify the roof types on those buildings. And once you have that, this is all within Pro, you can actually create a script for City Engine, which is our 3D solution, to take that classified raster and basically build out an entire browsable 3D scene of your city. And that 3D scene is going to work with all of our other tech. You can pull it into Urban. You can build plans around it. And all just from aerial LiDAR. So the second project I'm going to talk about is AI for disaster response. So obviously, there's a bunch of challenges coordinating a response to a disaster. First of all, you have limited time and resources. And in that kind of environment, there's also a lot of human analysis that needs to go on. And one of the key analysis that needs to be performed is really imagery analysis. So usually following a hurricane, a fire, an earthquake, somebody will do a flyover and collect aerial imagery to understand what areas are affected. But now an analyst needs to go in and mark off where there's damaged structures, mark off what neighborhoods are affected, what level of damage there is, where people might be trapped. And not only is that time consuming in a time sensitive environment, it's also error prone. So people might be trapped in small structures, out in rural areas, and it might be difficult for an analyst to get to, be able to find those people in time. So we infused AI into this workflow in multiple ways. The first is really just detecting damaged structures. So you feed in some imagery, and the AI model will go in and basically create a feature layer in our desktop solution that will tell you these are the damaged structures and these are the undamaged structures. And it'll quickly give you an idea of what the the level of damage across the community is. The second part of this is, once we started talking to clients about this work, we're like, it's not only structures that are damaged. In a lot of these disasters, roads are damaged. They might be washed away, they might be cracked, they might be just covered in debris. So we built another AI model that will go in, will consume your road layer and basically mark all the debris on it. Now, once we have both of these, and they're in these standardized formats, their feature classes, we just went ahead and used our routing solution, Network Analyst, to build optimal routes for any number of first responders so that they could address those damaged structures and the routes already account for blocked roads. And once we had all of that, we really put it together in an operations dashboard, which is basically helping HQ understand where those first responders are, what the status of the response is, what routes are given to what responders, and what the current status of the response is as a whole. So I'm just going to show some of these. This is just some of the satellite imagery we looked at, or aerial imagery, sorry, for Hurricane Michael. And this is our AI model when we ran it against that imagery, collecting damaged structures and undamaged structures. And this is the same imagery, but the AI model that is now trained to detect road debris. And now we took that, we just ran it for a small area, and we marked off which structures need to be addressed. We marked off a local community fire station, and we built a route for a few first responders to go out and address those structures and check for any rescues. And lastly, we put that all in the dashboard that I talked about. So you can see one of the first responders there in the center. You can see how many active workers are out in the field. You can see how many of the damaged structures have been assessed. And you can see stuff like the current hurricane status and damaged roads as well. So now I'm going to pass it to my colleague, David Yu, who's going to talk about using deep learning for road signs.
Thanks, Shiraz. So now I'm going to quickly switch gears and talk about another exciting project we've done at GeoAI, road feature detection and geotagging. So road features are assets out on the road that are of interest to local government entities such as departments of transportation and public works. They consist of items such as road signs, street lamps, guardrails, road cracks, pavement markings, you name it. It's important for the maintenance of a road asset management geodatabase and for the purpose of road asset damage detection that these features be identified and classified frequently with a high degree of accuracy and at scale. The problem is current methods of detecting road assets consist of sending work crews out to manually survey an entire road network, which is both costly and time-consuming. Often, by the time a road network is fully surveyed, it has gone out of date. So to tackle this problem, we introduced a machine learning approach that is capable of ingesting data generated from mobile mapping systems. These mobile mapping systems, such as car-mounted GPS-enabled cameras, help drive down cost by producing accurate geotagged images at speed and at scale. And these output images are usually consumed by a machine learning model integrated into the ArcGIS pipeline. So in collaboration with the Arizona Department of Transportation, we have created such a machine learning model that takes in these geotagged images. We went in and manually labeled a portion of these images as training data and trained the machine learning model against it to detect road signs. The model then classified these signs into sign types, such as exit signs, warning signs, and so on. We also incorporated optical character recognition for better sign indexing and to enable text-based search queries. We inferred the latitude and longitude of these signs using a deep learning-driven depth prediction network. And finally, we'd output our results into a feature layer that can be consumed directly by the ArcGIS online or desktop solutions. It's a very similar workflow for road crack detection from dashcam video feeds. So we actually classify these signs into specific types, such as longitudinal cracks, alligator cracks, and transverse cracks. By the way, you may think that all road cracks are the same, but because each type of road crack can be caused by a multitude of factors, they also reveal differing insights and need different means of repair. Of course, a machine learning model by itself is not going to generate this insight, which is why we also created an operations dashboard that Shiraz talked about. This gives an analyst the ability to analyze, edit, and interact with these road features and their relevant attributes. We also added the ArcGIS mobile solution into the mix by giving workers the option to update these road feature records from out in the field in real time following new installations or asset maintenance. And this simply adds an end-to-end pipeline for the entire workflow. So there's plenty more fascinating projects which we don't have the time to cover, from land cover classification to object tracking to blight detection. The bottom line is we don't want to throw machine learning at every single problem. However, given that there are tasks that require repetitive decision making, as long as there's sufficient training data, this is something that machine learning can automate to generalize these processes for future input very quickly, very cheaply, and at scale. So before I wrap up, let me just quickly add that all three of our teams, ArcGIS Indoors, ArcGIS Urban, and GeoAI, also operate off EEAP credits. That's the ESRI Enterprise Advantage Program, which can be used to engage our professional services teams. And this is included in your enterprise agreements. And also, all three of our teams, I think also ArcGIS Hub as well, will be present at user conference next month. So definitely feel free to drop by and say hello. Thank you.
I believe you saw the ESRI suite of products promote data sharing, collaboration, improving business processes, and can definitely change the way we do business at the County of San Bernardino. So at this point, I want to thank all of the presenters, and we don't have a lot of time. We have about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and the panel, all the speakers were available to answer any questions that you may have. Questions? No questions? Lori. We need to, where's Jan? I know that Hub is, some of these service offerings, Jan's in the corner, I have not been released yet. So we'll be working with Jan to identify what's included and what is not included. But the ones that are not included to date is because they haven't been released yet. Some are still in like a pilot. Others, like the AI, I think there's a dependency on the AI component, which is, I think, a different. Anyway, it's a combination of two vendors. So those are discussions we can have, but in the beginning, everything's included. Hub, ArcGIS Hub is also included. The other three are newer offerings, and we'll be working with ESRI on the enterprise level agreement, and hopefully they'll be included. What we're going to do after today's presentation, we're going to send an email to all the attendees with contact information. So at least, and our role is to help provide support. So whether it's us providing, helping coordinate training, engaging ESRI, but we'll help navigate that for you. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, hi, Dan. I would say we definitely would want to. I don't know where Gary's. I'll let Leonard answer that question.
Here's what we'll do. We'll get together as an executive leadership team with the DEOs and the AEO to say what, based on what you saw today, it's kind of like coming to a toy store and all these little gadgets. Based on what you think in your departments, so for community services, for you, Diana, I'm sure your mind is racing right now. I'm sure Luther has some thoughts right now because I see him. He's in his thinking mode right now. We'll get together and then we'll look at how do we approach this, working with Jennifer and the ESRI team so that we can start to bring some of this to scale. And I know I've already been talking from someone from the board office that has some ideas too, so there could be a lot of things. What we want to do is approach this in a responsible manner so that we're actually seeing some progress, things that are going to make move the needle the most, and get ESRI's team's input on what they think could help us provide some platforms that then allow others to jump in on that. Any other questions? Well, I'm sure the speakers will be available out as you're walking through. You can come up here. And let's give ESRI, when the first speaker from ESRI came up, they said you're a lively group. You are a lively group, so let's give them a great round of applause and show them some San Bernardino County juice here. Yeah, there we go. I want to thank ESRI so much for hosting us and allowing us to have this here. It's fascinating, great conversation starters. I think it's going to enable us to do business so much different and better, and the residents are going to benefit from that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.